Welcome back, everyone. We're here for another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Today, we are featuring a new to me Michigan author. He's from the Lapeer area, and his name is Chris Dungey. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for coming to the program.
Hello, Catherine.
Um, so in the green room, we talked a little bit, and you are a veteran of the UAW and the outer world here in Detroit. And you've done a bunch of other little things too along the way, some teaching and such. What was the thing that really drove you to decide, okay, now I'm going to write 3 books?
I have to write. That's all I am. I'm not just a shop rat. I'm not just a school teacher or substitute teacher. I'm a writer, and so I have to write.
Okay, so you've been
Yep.
writing most of your life then, just
Most
for
of my
your
adult
own
life, yes.
edification? Okay,
Yep.
did you write as a young person as well?
I wrote my way through high school because uh, I flunked algebra, or
Yeah, me
nearly
too.
flunked, and got
Yeah,
out of it.
yeah, me too.
And to keep my GPA up, I had to make outstanding bones in English and in history, where you get to write a lot of essays.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. I found a great deal of comfort writing all through high school as well. Um, so we also talked in the green room a little bit about your influences, and you talked about Catcher in the Rye. And
Sure.
I'm curious what it was about that novel that really captured your imagination.
I don't know really. You wouldn't be able to read that in high school today. Um, the young, the young teacher who everybody had a crush on. Um, it, it just the kid was off the wall, and I'm blanking on his name now.
Holden Caulfield?
Holden Caulfield, yes, he was off the wall, and his relationship with his sister and the dead brother were just um, it got me. And his
Okay.
his nonchalant attitude toward his studies, probably.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who identified with Holden for those reasons. So tell me a little bit about evacuation route. But before you do, I want to make sure that we give our listeners a listener advisory warning for this episode. There are instances of violence, strong language, and mature situations in this novel. So if you have little ears listening to the program, I would recommend that you preview this episode before you share it with the little ones, just to be on the safe side. So tell me a little bit about the story of Evacuation Route, Chris.
Uh, I was aware of. Now my phone is messing up. I was aware of certain characters in my parents' uh, park down in Homosassa, Florida, that they talked about. I never met these people, but they were uh, ne'er do wells that were gossiped about. And I thought I could build a character. I could build a character around one of these guys, and I'd give him a background, and I would explain why he was there, why how he had ended up there. And then I brought in other characters. I brought in the two prostitutes and the biker club that they once worked for, and I knew that it would end in a storm. It would end in a killer storm, and so I only had to get to the storm. I'll tell you a little secret. I had a great scene around Memorial Day where the bike club was going to show their colors at a Memorial Day celebration and then have a pig roast back at their clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't do it for 4th of July because they wouldn't be riding anywhere for 4th of July. Uh, I wouldn't be able to talk about the veterans that were in their group. if it was 4th of July. So then I had to cover 2.5 months of filler to get to hurricane season. That's why the one character goes to Louisiana. That's why the girls go to shop in Miami. And
Because you
that's
had
why,
to buy time
yeah, that's
for
why
your hurricane season.
the
Right.
citizens of the trailer park had to go on a manatee uh, tour. So I don't know. As long as the reader is entertained,
Well, that's what we all hope for, right? Is that
that
our
was stuff I
stories are
really could have
gonna,
cut.
yeah, we all hope our stories are gonna catch something in a reader. So
Keep you entertained until the crux of the matter.
absolutely. So I'm excited to hear you read a little bit from this. And I understand you're going to read 3 separate scenes for us. Do you need to set any of this up for us, or will you do that as we progress
We'll
through the
just be
reading?
introducing the main character
Okay.
and the main character's future uh, squeeze, if you will, when he moves to the trailer park, and the two girls.
Okay. When you are ready, sir, please set your timer.
My timer is not working very well.
Okay.
It goes black on me. Let me see if it'll go black once it's running.
All right.
Are you ready for
So
me?
when you are ready, please take the microphone and read aloud from Evacuation Route.
Evacuation Route, Part 1. Home for the Holidays. And the epigram is Fortune brings in some boats that are not steered. That's from Cymbeline, Shakespeare. Bocewicz and Sons Family Pharmacy in northeastern Jacksonville, Florida, was finally going to bite the dust. The deepening Great Recession of 2008 probably had little to do with it, but was certainly the coup de grace. The demise had been looming for some time. In consideration of an older, poorer demographic, and to wring out every last dime with an extended going out of business sale, Warren Bocewicz and his younger brother Walter kept the place open until 10 p.m., like the national chain drugstores pointedly absent from those blocks. Those places had been slowly crushing Bocewicz and Son since the new millennium. The owners of the last family drugstore hoped to avoid renting a storage unit for leftover inventory. Everything must go, if at all possible. The shelves were becoming nicely stripped. Tonight, Walter Bocewicz, who was not himself a pharmacist, performed his own personal closing routine before balancing out. He did the legal part for Warren, the actual pharmacist, then carefully slipped an emptied brown vitamin E bottle, now containing a Xanax and a 5 milligram Vicodin, into his hoodie beneath the counter. It was not a huge theft on the scale of some AA war stories he'd heard. Walter preferred to think of these as a mishandling of inventory, to be expected of one inexperienced in the strict regulation of retail pharma. That's what he'd plead if the pilfering ever came to Warren's attention. Walt experienced only a small twinge of guilt, but he was only stitching together a golden parachute of brake fluid, what they called these meds in the jail infirmary, doled out to inmates suffering withdrawal, since Warren first announced that Bocewicz and Sons would liquidate. When that happened, Walt intended to subsist in obscure idleness until Social Security kicked in. No more crap jobs if at all possible. He planned to spend his waning years reading, watching televised sports, and enjoying discreetly limited attitude enhancements. He would drive soberly to some tranquil locale, there to enjoy low impact hedonisms in the privacy of a modest dwelling. He must absolutely stay off the roads if he ever again became even mildly impaired. He intended never again to interact with the Florida legal system. In anticipation of those goals, he looked forward to that day, not too far off, he sensed by the depleting shelves, when a final destruction of remaining Schedule 1 pharmaceuticals would be required by law. Some must be sealed in bags of kitty litter, he learned online. I can totally assist with that. Clean kitty litter, though, right? This was A.A. Stinkin' Thinkin' writ large, but he was pretty sure Warren would be lining his own escape pod. His financial instruments were of the more traditional, if now morally suspect variety. Walt's brother brought a Wall Street Journal in every morning to follow the evaporating market. Warren Bocewicz, majority shareholder of the property after repeated loans to Walter for bail and lawyers, was a longtime participant in a Jacksonville theater group. He often referred to Walter's function as front of the house. While Walter had once managed a BA in accounting and a minor in English, he'd never actually been employed in either of those fields, but he retained a strong love for vocabulary, enhancing with $10 words every slur at arresting officers. And now I'm going to switch to the next part. I lost it. And when I seem to change POV, it's because the work is in italics and it's interior monologue. Chapter 2. Bella Nguyen Ruiz was going to be very relieved to turn west, back in the direction of the Gulf. It seemed like an hour since she'd set out hiking from the roadway in. Putting a few quiet blocks between herself and the hurtling grit gale of traffic on US 19 would take some of the jitters out of her clammy hangover. She felt a tiny bead of perspiration trickle down her neck from beneath her Phillies baseball cap. She wasn't worried about the sun on her dark skin. It could only help, except if she ever developed some of those cancer moles. She would have to spend a full year up north to even get a look at her true skin tone, being on or near the water for most of her life. What a beautiful job her cross-pollinating parents had done for her to turn out as she had. Well, appearance-wise, anyway. She wore a blend of pigmentations bequeathed by her Cuban papi and Vietnamese mama san. Her genetic tree had literally washed ashore, latter-day wretched refuse, or had been dredged from the sea by the U.S. Navy. Pappy arrived in a leaky boat, the motor of which quit 10 miles off their destination in the midsection of the Keys. It was a long row, one amigo bailing while the other two rowed. They tried to hold position offshore until nightfall, praying not to hear the slap of helicopter blades or to see the white wake of an approaching Coast Guard cutter. Then they contended with pretty healthy surf in the dark. Later, taking work as a commercial fisherman, he overcame a strong phobia of sharks. For 3 days and nights, he and his friends kept constant watch, took turns bailing the porous 12-foot boat. Dorsal fins were everywhere. Mama San's flashbacks were much worse. These included screaming nightmares, images of losing someone snatched from the surface, drifted too far from the protection of a single .38 revolver and homemade spears. The outboard motor of the makeshift pontoon raft had sputtered dry shortly after reaching international waters. Gone in the instant was her cousin, and soon after that, a fleeing school teacher. The buoyancy of a life jacket, no resistance at all. Each time, those in the water crawled half onto the raft, begging for their turn aboard. They lost 4 out of the 18 passengers who shared the swamped craft. Luckily, that shark must have been in a small group. The former ARVN officer with the gun bagged a couple of them, which put confusing blood into the water. No one wanted him to take a turn overboard. Bella never learned to swim, was never out of a life jacket while aboard their flat fishing boat. Pappy eventually tried some clamming in deserted grounds close inshore to go with his crab venture, but it wasn't worth the time and risk of running aground. All the best clamming was up north in the Bend waters. Even within wading distance of narrow, deserted beaches, Mama San would not relax vigilance over her daughter. The single takeaway from her one traumatic viewing of Apocalypse Now was the admonition, you never leave boat. How did Bella suppose they were introduced to one another? Certainly they made some kind of small talk and eventually courted in the pidgin and Spanglish of the shrimp boats and fish market bodegas. Those were Bella's own first languages, though her parents also forced her peremptorily to speak English. She must communicate in the magical words of assimilation. Now she remembered little of her early harbor vocabulary. The ball cap was part of today's disguise, though she'd been wearing similar ones most of her life. The camouflage this morning also included oversized amber shades, but a conical non-la of the rice paddies would not have been inappropriate. She had the cheekbones for it. And now I'll go to the introduction of the third character, Darlene Spurgeon, who will eventually be Walt's love interest when he arrives at the Glade trailer park. Darlene Spurgeon held up dinner, waiting on Charlie, her youngest. She wasn't used. Go. She wasn't used to all the noise in the place. The rest of the family was getting full, gorging on chips and cheese crackers, even nibbling out of the Walmart veggie tray her daughter-in-law brought. There was no grumbling yet about delay in enjoying the main course. They were all accustomed to Charlie's tardiness. Her older son, Larry, and her son-in-law, Troy, were foresting the coffee table in the front room with a thicket of beer bottles. They occasionally hollered at the TV. Darlene knew without looking that there would be barbecue chip crumbs on the carpet, working their way down between the couch cushions and dusting the slouching beer guts of both those fine specimens of the subspecies buccaneer fan. The backs of their heads, including Troy's male pattern baldness, were all that showed above the back of the couch where they lounged at either end. Special men's, she thought, and smiled for maybe the third time since her welcome, y'all, happy Turkey Day greeting of 2 hours ago. That joint, though reluctantly shared, smoothed out her willies at the noisy disruption to her usual weekend routine. For God's sake, woman, them are your own dear children and their sweet offspring. The ecstatic or maybe frantic cries of a football color analyst reached straight into the kitchen, punctuated by the outraged or less frequently gleeful commentary of her male guests. She found herself studying her hand on her own hip. Whoa, maybe better not to hit that stuff again too soon. But if there was ever a Thanksgiving to beware of her hips and the calories destined to arrive there, then this one might be it. Well, blank me. How's that mother get himself that wide open? If you can't cover a little white guy no better than that, then you should go onto the waiver wire and ride the effing bus back home. That was the kind of transgression it took to break into Darlene's buzz. Hey in there. Watch your foul language. She rolled her eyes, reached slowly across the snack bar for her smoldering, don't get too baked interval of a tobacco cigarette. She quit a few years ago, but dope and one other popular trigger always lowered her resistance. She tapped loose the lengthening ash. The glass ashtray was painted with a manatee feeding off a head of lettuce from some humans in a rowboat. Jesus, but they love their manatees in this town, even more than Crystal River does. And those folks throw a week-long summer festival for them big old sea cows. Get life without parole. You ever run over the back of one with an outboard motor? Her daughter Sandy and daughter-in-law Terry, with an eye, Darlene could never help but think, extended their own smoldering embers at the same moment, colliding like a small industrial spill over the ashtray. Terry, with an eye, giggled, "Y'all owe me a coat." "That's for something else, I'm pretty sure," Sandy said. "When you say a word or phrase the same time as your companion does." She withdrew her damaged butt for one more puff before crushing it out with some emphasis into the earlier disaster. "Sounds like buccaneers must be getting whipped. I guess I'll be driving home," Sandy said. "Those beers will be getting tears dripped in them before long. Isn't it a shame?" "You're lucky," Terry, with an eye, said. "Larry won't let nobody else drive the keys unless he's passed out before we're packed up. I'm going to have a hard word with that boy. He knows better than that when them babies are on board." Darlene swirled the ice in her rum and coke. She sighed with relief. At least the daughter-in-law's comment was some indication that they did, in fact, intend to leave. "Don't nobody plan on staying over. Old Meemaw may have plans for later." There was supposed to be a euchre tournament at the Glade clubhouse tonight for anyone who had their fill of the holiday. Just bring along your favorite leftover dessert. There were 2 or 3 old widowers that were likely to show up, and she hoped to have a look and maybe kick the tires on one of them. And that's where I'll end. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Those are 3 very interesting characters. Which of those 3 did you find the most challenging to write?
Uh, Probably Darlene. I had a lot of work to do on her dialect, and I changed it a number of times. She and one of the prostitutes, Mary, Merry, uh, are, what's the politically correct term? They're of Southern extraction,
Okay.
uh, of, let's say, uneducated Southern extraction, and getting her dialect right was, I had to do that. And she's also has a complication with her son, who will have a has jealousy uh, problems with
Okay.
men that her mother hooks up with because of past abuse from the son's father.
Yeah, I can
Uh,
certainly see how writing those kinds of scenes might be a challenge. They can
well,
really hit us in an emotional state. So I
I got
can,
through it.
yeah, yeah. No, I can see how that would be a challenge. What was your favorite part of writing this book?
Getting done. I, I hate to say that, but the the process is hard. The end result, and when people like it or you think they like it, that's the best part. Um,
Absolutely.
and I'm not going to make a lot of money. I'm not going to sell a lot of books. But if I entertain my friends and followers, that'll be fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, one more question before we head out for today. You've got 2 other books. Can you tell me a little bit about those as well?
They're both basically autobiographically provoked.
Okay.
The first book is a lot about my hometown and then drifts over to my current residence. It goes through um, a shotgun marriage and a divorce, and there's a lot of shop stories in there, auto worker stories,
So, is this a collection of short stories, a novella, another novel? How would you classify it?
collection of stories.
And what's the title?
Um, the Pace Lap Blues and other stories from the 70s.
Okay.
The
And then
second collection,
what's your second book?
We Won't Be Kissing,
Okay.
uh, came out in 2018. It's also begins with the character in his youth and drifts into adulthood and over to Lapeer, which is adjacent to Emily City here,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know why I call Lapeer, and I call Emily City Celeryville. There used to be a sign along the, if you ever been through Emily City, you know all the muck farms,
Absolutely,
the
yes.
black dirt farms. There used to be a sign that said the celery capital of the world. So that's where I got my name for Emily City.
Okay, great.
Why,
And
I
and
don't
that
know.
that second book is also a collection of short stories then?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
And
Well,
I think a more mature voice, if I had to say so.
I think as authors in general, our voices mature over the years that we spend working on our craft. I think that's a natural progression.
Well,
Um, go ahead.
the next collection should be what's the word? Should be a whiz bang, if that's the case.
So that's what you're working on now. That was going to be my last question for the day is what project you're working on now. It's another collection of shorts.
I have it already,
Okay.
but I don't feel like publishing it yet. I may add a few more stories to it. I have entered it in some contests
Excellent.
and sent it off. It's just 150 pages, so
Excellent. Well, I wish you continued success and
thank you, Catherine.
enjoy your writing extravaganza. And I hope that when the next book comes out, you'll come back and read for us again.
I hope to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye bye.